Hello folks, Popper.com here, Arne Pilse. As usually today I want to talk about Modern, and I'm gonna try to ease the pain for you and the brainstorming process of what to play at your local Modern WMCQ this weekend, because they're happening around the world in many countries, and specifically this one is Modern, and I believe the third one as well is Modern. It's just the first one last month around the world. It's been normally standard, but for July, August, and sometimes September, it's all about Modern for qualifying for your national team. So this is what MtG Goldfish gives us for the Modern metagame. What I'm gonna try to do is not only go through statistics and numbers and archetypes, but also I would try to analyze and filter it through my perspective, what I think you should play, what you should expect, etc. Kind of interpret more or less as a player, as a grinder, as a brewer, etc. So this is online meta, which is significantly different from paper metagame, but not as much. I think on paper there are way more weird combo decks like Abs and Company, simply because you don't have to click through everything, so it's much easier to pilot very weird combo-ish trigger heavy decks on paper rather than online. But yeah, we see a trend that a bunch of very fast aggro decks or harsh control decks or tempo decks, etc. are comprising the biggest slices of the metagame right now. As you can see from one of the newcomers is the Hirija Sky for the past few months, so it's not something that's directly evolved right after the Eldrazi bannings, and the Eldrazi decks get crippled quite a bit, so it emerged over time, over the course of the spring and June as well. Then Dredge is something that emerged over the course of the spring. It's a new deck, but not many people play it, not many people have it, especially on paper. But online it actually comprises quite a good chunk of the metagame. 3% is not that much, but I actually have seen it quite a lot across long-term lists of Magic Online leagues, etc. But what you see is that not that many control decks, a lot of different flavors of tempo and aggro decks, and yes, some combo decks, but not too many. Not too many. Definitely a lot of tempo decks, as you can see. And there are some niche decks. Actually, with the Eldritch Moon, there will be some shifts, but I believe it's not out yet, and I don't think it will actually impact any of the WMCQ's number 2, but it will definitely impact Magic Cup qualifiers number 3 across the world, because those will happen in August and September, and the Eldritch Moon will be out at that point. Right, and yeah, there are a bunch of decks, and I believe Mono Blue Tron will actually go up and the increase in popularity just because of that super awesome blue wish for Eldrazi's. Right. Then what I want to say is that yeah, paper metagame differs, but top decks are still the same. Although if you go to, let's say, not Star City Opens or Bazaar of Moxen type of events, more local type of events, but still which are big, then there will be differences. There will be differences. So more wacky decks, but yeah, Actually, it's present not that much of a difference, but what I've noticed is that you would see way more of white aggro decks, actually white-green taxes, and different flavors of Avervile decks, not just Merfolks, but all kinds of decks. Eldrazian taxes, that's the black and white version. Then you would see way more boggles on paper events locally, which includes the WMCQs. You would probably see a bit more zoo. Kiki Chord will probably be a niche deck for the skill intensive one, so it's something that people with a lot of practice would rather play and not just quickly pick up. Burn will be there, Bent Eldrazi will be there probably at the MCQs. It's a deck that somebody who doesn't play Modern that often can assemble and pick up relatively easy. So is for Infact, so is for John, so is for Affinity. So just think of the fact that about half of the decks at your Magic Cup qualifier will be comprised of decks that people just borrowed and quickly assembled and thought they were ready to go. Tron is probably not one of those decks, so I don't expect a huge amount of Tron, but it's been doing alright lately. Don't expect a lot of Suicide Zoo, but some copies for sure. Dredge will be probably very scarce at Magic Cup qualifiers. Grixis Control and Blue-White Axe kind of control, including different flavors of Jeskai, will probably be there, especially in Nordic countries where control seems to be a place where a lot of people want to end up. I think Titan Shift or Escape Shift basically follows the same criteria. I wouldn't really gun against Ad Nauseam that much, for example. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna go through the decks that I think I would want to play in this type of fields myself, but we're gonna go through more data first. So this is basically what TCG Player gave me in terms of statistics. So all of those are first finishes from paper events, from moderately big events, a bunch of SG events, and state championships in different states. And what we can see is that the spectrum or the range of decks is pretty huge. Like if we just take the June decks, the range is pretty big actually. The range is pretty big. A lot of different decks are viable, so practice and test and experience actually is more important. You can maybe even win your local Magic qualifier with elves, like the Azori version or the combo version with Crater Hoof, evolutionary leap type, that type of stuff. You might even be able to win everything with Monoblitron, even without Eldritch Moon cards. So a lot depends on experience and playtesting and the right sideboarding. Sideboarding is huge in Modern. It basically can be the difference between winning a tournament or doing horrible. And every website just to conveniently look at events, at the biggest events for the past few weeks, like SCG Open in Dallas. Pretty good diversity of decks in the top 8 and in top 32. Although what we see is quite a few Junt decks and yeah, a few Infact decks. But I think a lot of people play Junt because they assume it's just safe and it's a good deck all around, doesn't really have good matchups, doesn't really have bad matchups. But what this means is that most of the matchups are quite a sweat. You would really need to sweat it out and grind it out and play smart and So basically, Junt is a perfect deck for a person who's been playing the game for like a decade, for like 10 years, and but doesn't play that regularly, doesn't play that often. So it's a perfect deck for those people. Then SG Classic Orlando, which happened about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, quite a bit of Junt, so it's definitely a deck to beat. You should be ready to beat Junt. And then a bunch of different decks with not that many repeats for the top 16 of that event. Even elves in the top 8, so it's a possibility, like I said. It's a possibility. So let's look at the Rogi. What was that? Oh yeah, the Esper Zur. Right, I actually saw that on camera. In the feature match, it was streamed on Twitch from MtG. Yeah, the deck is pretty fun. It's pretty fun. It's basically like Esper Control, Esper Tempo. So it's just Jeskai Tempo, Jeskai Flash, looking at the different side of it. Just a bit more kind of interactive, a bit more tutor-ish kind of thing. So that kind of stuff. And yeah, the sideboard is pretty balanced and pretty sweet. Like, you get all sorts of enchantments and spells to answer pretty much anything. And this is Bazaar of Moxen in Strasbourg, which just happened just a few days ago. And in fact, again, so it's a second deck to beat right now, so you should be ready for it, because lots of people are picking it up, that's for sure. 178 players in there. A bunch of Jeskai decks as well, and Kiki Courts. Well, not a bunch, but you see 2 in the top 8. And Kiki Court is another deck that you should be ready for. Affinity is something that might always show up. You should cover that base too as well, just in case. Even though it never really comes up with in huge numbers, but you should be ready for it. Okay, so now the spicy deck that I really do like. I played the a version of this online, and I have some videos and streamed with it, so you can check it out on the channel as well in the modern playlist. But I played the more kind of traditional conservative version, so to speak. I was tweaking it a little bit with Riftwing Cloudscape. I had some weird charms in there. I had at least 2 March of the Machines, but it's a wacky win condition, so yeah, at some point, I mean, in a way, I'm kind of annoyed that this is another deck where people just slammed Nahiri and Emrakul. But when you think about it, when you've played with the deck, you realize that it actually fits perfectly into the deck. And I like the selection of spells as well. It's a nice deck because of Simon Spirit Guides to play Blood Moons, for example. You have a lot of interactive spells like Unmaking, Maelstrom Pulse, Mardu Charm that can do a bunch of different things. You can flashback a bunch of nice things with Dark Dwellers, for example, although I'm not 100% sure that Dwellers belong to this deck, but I kinda like them here. Also, Dwellers Flashback Dread or Outburst, so they basically get you another balance, so that's one of the biggest points why it's in the deck, I would say. And yeah, like the usual Ajani Vengeance, the usual Gargadon, and of course you win normally by just casting the balance and having something, having more mana than they do, and then you can cast a bunch of things and win with Gargadon as well, synergizing with balance, I mean restore balance, sorry. But yeah, here is great. It lets you loot, it lets you get rid of a threat on board, and then yeah, you just like search up Emrakul and kaboom, I like the sideboard's leyline for a bunch of different decks, including Absent Company, for example. Sanctity against discard against burn. This deck actually struggles a little bit against burn sometimes, by the way. Like the Brain is just a fun card to, like it's like a Hemorrhage or something. So like an extraction effect. It's not just a discard spell. It's against combo decks. Souls against aggro as well, just a nice way to stall the board. Stall on Crows and Grebe. And Ricochet Trap just against counter spells and some combos. So yeah, pretty decent deck. Moving back to the metagame. So what I think would be good picks for this weekend for the qualifiers. Well, I do like a lot of different decks. I think to get a slight edge over what I expect and what will likely be most played decks. So I would think about Titan Shift or Escape Shift actually. I would think about Ad Nauseam. So my logic is that the decks, let's say a lot of people have hard time figuring out how to play around against it, and then good players who have played the deck for a long time can really get an edge, and I do like them in the metagame right now. Then Kiki Chord is something that I really do like. A bunch of white Winnie kind of Death and Taxes style decks are also fine. Boggles are actually good when you see a lot of Giant, but probably not when you see a lot of Infect, I would say. Although you would have a lot of blockers that they can't really kill, so it depends. So with Titan Shift I also imply Red-Green Breach. That deck as well. In my mind they're kinda in the same dimension. What else? I really do like Living End and its other kind of counterpart, the Restore Balance Cascade deck. So Cascade decks I think are pretty good now because you see a lot of creature-based mid-ranges and a lot of creature-based decks, and that's just awesome news for Living End or Restore Balance. So those are pretty good. If a bunch of people are expected to bring in mid-ranges and aggro decks, then also like green-black elves probably will be a much better and much faster aggro deck. For example, what else? Of course, like Grixis Control, if it's a good pilot's experienced player, they should do well with it. I think that's roughly about it. Also, Soul Sister, summing the mono-white life gain deck, also doesn't mind to play against giant and creature decks, so that's another thing. But if you think that you're most likely gonna play against not just giant but Grixis Control and Cheskate Control, then you might want to take, I don't know, some Delver deck, possibly something fast, but that also can kind of interact with control decks by the means of own counter spells and discard. So I would say that if you expect a lot of control and actually more mid-range rather than combos and aggro, then Grixis Delver probably might be a good choice. So yeah, that's probably my picks. So thanks for watching, and I see you in the second part of this review, which will be more about standard, but I thought that modern is a bit more vital in the next few days. So yeah, check out the channel, the website, and check me out on Twitch and social media. Right, so let's hope you guys gonna have a good tournament. I'm traveling so we can play this one, but I'll be playing the third qualifier. So thanks for watching, goodbye.